The Romanov dynasty had existed for less than 60 years when Peter the Great was born on June 9, 1672. In 1613, his grandfather, the 16-year-old Michael Romanov, had been offered the bankrupt, moth-eaten throne of the Tsars after over a decade of chaos and civil war, known as the Time of Troubles, during which there had been no supreme ruler in Russia. Sickly, unprepared, lacking in allies, Michael had nonetheless managed to prepare his son, Alexei, superbly for the position he would inherit. Alexei I was well educated for a Russian of his era, reform-minded, strictly religious, and beloved by his subjects. To peasant and noble alike, the Tsar was father of his people, Batushka, and his authority over them was supreme, as the authority of a father over his children was supreme. Alexei had a reputation for piety besides. He was called the young monk during the early years of his reign, and even priests of the Russian Orthodox Church who visited the Tsar's court found it a challenge to keep up with his daily schedule of prayers and masses, which began before dawn and continued throughout the day. Alexei's first wife was Maria Miloslavsky, a girl 4 years his senior, whom the Tsar had selected out of a final group of 6 contestants in a traditional bride show, a sort of beauty contest for the daughters of the minor nobility. The winner of the bride show became Tsarina, and her family was elevated to a place of honor and influence in the Tsar's court. Alexei's union with Miloslavsky produced 13 children. She died in 1669 after 21 years of marriage, due to complications from her 14th pregnancy. Despite the birth of so many children, only a few of them had survived infancy, and only 2 of them were boys. Of these 2 potential heirs, the elder, Fyodor, was sickly, and the younger, Ivan, was partially blind and considered to be slow. What sort of disability or impairment he had is uncertain, but it was plain that he could never rule Russia alone. Alexei decided to marry again, in the hopes of producing more sons. The girl of 19 whom Alexei chose as his next Tsarina was remarkable, even unique, amongst the young Russian women of her day. Her name was Natalia Narishkina, and she was the ward of Artem Matviev and his wife Mary Hamilton, a Scottish refugee from Cromwell's anti-royalist regime. Matviev and Hamilton lived in the German quarter, the only area of Moscow where foreigners were permitted to reside, and they hosted regular salons where the science, art, literature, and technology of the West were celebrated. Alexei was a regular visitor to their home. Unlike most Russians, he had studied Western languages as a boy, and he took an interest in the lives of the foreigners dwelling in his city. In the late 17th century, people at even the highest levels of Russian society were unaware and uncaring of the amusements or advancements that enlivened the existence of their European counterparts. Russia, though massive, was landlocked for most of the year when its sole port city, Archangel, was frozen over. The nations that bordered Russia, particularly Sweden and Austria, took care to keep their neighbor isolated by checking any attempt to gain control of southern waterways in the Baltic. But Russia's isolation was cultural and religious as well as geographical. The Orthodox Church held no communion with Roman Catholicism. Russians looked east to Kiev, to Constantinople, for its religious and cultural near neighbors.